the other. Right? So you've got to imagine that place covered with houses. Why I have so many copies of this picture? I didn't mean to have so many copies of this picture. Right? So if you compare this space, count these 200 acres of archaeology under the ground, and we've seen some of it by doing, some of you may have seen us taking these geophysical prospecting instruments a couple of times across there. They work pretty well. They're not perfect, but we've seen archaeology under the ground without digging it across this whole space. And if you start to put the number of houses you can fit up there compared to the kinds of towns that we know Native people lived in at the same time in other parts of up into South Dakota, up into North Dakota, you're talking several houses per acre, maybe quarter acre plots, quarter acre suburban plots. We're talking hundreds of houses up there, and probably 8 to 10 people per house, given the way people lived in more recent times, family size, right? Best guess that we've got puts a minimum of 3,000 to 4,000 people up in that town in 1300. Could be as high as 6,000. There are at least four sites that archaeologists know about. You start in Spencer and go up to Butte. There's 4 more sites that aren't quite as big as the one up here, but they've got exactly the same archaeology. We've got radiocarbon dates on 3 of them, and those radiocarbon dates are all exactly the same. So if you add those sites in, if people settle them just like the way that we're pretty sure they settled here, then we're talking probably 10 to 15,000 people along Ponca Creek 700 years ago, which is at that time would have been one of the largest concentrations of population north of Mexico. Which is hard to imagine these days. I mean, and imagine how different it would have looked. Right? I showed you that house. It's got 4 weight-bearing posts times 400 houses, 500 houses. That's 1,600, 2,000 trees, let alone stringers and rafters and everything else. And each family probably had 7 to 15 acres in crops, right? Some of it crops, some of it fallow. So multiply that out and imagine the bottomlands along Ponca Creek filled with corn and fallow fields, right? It was not different in some ways than today. They were just living higher up, and there are more of them than there are here now. So this is from our work. I said we have pets. This is